Good morning for me and good evening for you. It's almost evening at your end, right?
Yes, it is indeed. It's 5 p.m. here in the UK, in London.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. I wish I can come and visit sometime. So I would like to start with like, can you introduce yourself? I know you. We met at Stanford breakfast before. You told us about your startup, and I was so
Mhm.
excited about it. But I have no business with it.
Yeah.
I'm, I'm already married, but it's always good to hear about this kind of human slash community slash startup related ideas.
Yeah, no, of course. Yeah, I'm Shahzad Younas, founder, CEO of Muzmatch. What is Muzmatch? We're a Muslim marriage app. We help Muslims around the world find the one, ultimately get married. So we aim to do it in a kind of a modern, approachable way, not in those kind of cringe, awful, expensive, horrible websites that everyone hates. We want to make the process a little bit fun, but just a positive experience. And alhamdulillah, now we're approaching 5 million members worldwide. I mean, the app's in 14 languages. We've got members absolutely everywhere. We've had weddings right around the world. Over 120,000 people now have actually found their partner on Muzmatch, which blows our mind. 300 people a day leave the platform and tell us, "Thank you very much. I found the one," and don't come back, which is great. So, we're having real tangible success in the community in what is a difficult, misunderstood space. It's a difficult space to navigate even for us. So for us, that's what makes it exciting, interesting, and challenging. So yeah, in terms of us, particularly Muzmatch, technically we've been going for 10 years now. It was a website. I'm sure we'll talk about the early days, but it was a website. And then 2014, I actually quit my job and started focusing on building it as an app, a pure app, and launched almost as a brand new service as an app only in 2015. So we've been going purely as an app in its current form for 6 years.
Yep. That's like I hear the numbers and I feel like so happy because like I'm kind of like I don't like the kind of like the quick relationships. I like the long term relationships generally,
Mhm.
and I always hope that people find the one. Um,
Yeah.
Before we start, we were talking about the hookup culture and like the other apps, and like I have a couple of questions, like for me and for others, like why it's a little bit different, like why mismatch is different.
Yeah, of course. I mean, so we're kind of unashamed in our intent, right? So for us, we're all about we're going to help you find the one, the person inshallah you spend the rest of your life with. That's the goal. Now, that affects how we market the product, the things that we ask you when you create a profile, and even a whole bunch of things in the app. So, just to give you a small example, when we first, I designed the very first version of the app in Microsoft Word, because this is back in 2015. I was in the one man band, I didn't have a designer. I literally just kind of designed it myself. And one of the screens that I had from day one, which I thought was important, was, I called an oath screen. So it would literally, before you talk to someone, it would say Bismillah, and it would actually say, look, this app is for finding your life partner. Basically, behave in a Islamic way, make sure your etiquette is right. Otherwise, you'll be removed. And the whole point of it is to set the intent on both sides of what is this app about, what's acceptable, what's not. And I think through that, we've actually done a good job. That's almost your first level of filtering. It's not perfect, but no doubt some people who are totally not after marriage will be like, Muzmatch is a bit too serious for me. I'm not going to join it, and that's good. That's by intent. So for us, we kind of really embrace all the quirks around how Muslims find a partner, all the things that are important to us, and use technology and use some of the modern means to actually solve it. We embrace it. We don't shy away from it, and kind of hide some of the difficulties or some of the quirks of how Muslims find a partner.
That's awesome. Does it work with anyone else other than Muslims? Like, let's say that like someone who is atheist,
Mm,
who would like to, who's looking for someone like a serious relationship. Like because I know, like when I went through the website, there's
mm,
specific filters that were like so you can match the ideology of like two different people, which I really like. It's the
mm.
focus on the thoughts and ideology and the brain of the person like in front of you
Yes,
before the
totally.
look, before the looks and like everything else. So the question, back to the question again, is like, does it work with everyone else who's looking for a certain ideology?
Yeah. In theory, I don't see why it wouldn't. So, if you look at even call it conventional mainstream dating apps, I mean, the male and female experience is so different. But generally speaking, the one overall bit of feedback, and we have the same thing that, I wouldn't say we're massively different, is, that subset of people who are like, oh, I wish people were more serious. That's like the one question. Now, thankfully, on our app versus others, people are generally more serious than you'd find on other apps because, like I said, we've kind of right from the beginning, we're all about when do you want to get married? Are you looking for marriage, etc. We make that crystal clear. To give you an example, a lot of the engineering team are not Muslim, so they're building this app. Obviously I'm a Muslim, so I'm very much kind of in tune with what Muslims need in the app in terms of the product, in terms of design, etc. But the engineers building it on, and I've had numerous engineers say this app is actually really good. I wish it was for the non-Muslim market because they can see either in the design or in the thoughts behind the design how we try and encourage good behavior and discourage bad behavior.
Okay. So the short answer, if it works for other than Muslims, it's not yet.
Oh yeah, not yet. Right now, the way I look at it in terms of a product is, if you want to do something well, just focus. So for us, we're I'm focused firmly on the Muslim market. Muslims are 1/5 of the world's population. That's a huge market, and I'd rather try and really do it well for the Muslim market. And remember, why is Muzmatch successful? We're the biggest in the world for what we do. Why are we so successful? Because nobody else was really looking at this market in a high quality way. No one was taking the time to understand it. No one was taking the time to actually build a product that respects the way Muslims do their search, and build something with technology to do that. To some extent, Muslims either had inferior products or because they didn't have a product, they were using mainstream apps but having a really poor service because, they weren't finding what they were after. And I think that's the beauty of what we've tried to do. So for me, it's if you want to do something well, just focus on it intently and don't be distracted by other things. It's kind of interesting because someone yesterday called me, and I've had these approaches of people saying, oh, you know what, you could totally make a Sikh version of Muzmatch or a Hindu version. And I'm like, we could. And this was a thought, 5 years ago, that in theory we could white label our product and make it for different faiths, etc. And I decided not to because exactly that, focus. That becomes just noise, and I actually think it devalues the product. What you want to do is just focus on doing one thing really, really well.
Yep. I totally agree with that. But there is counter argument for that, which is the inclusiveness. It's by design because I think if someone is looking for a partner based on faith, it's by design.
Cool.
It excludes lots of choices.
Faith and intent, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Even in the same faith, there is different variation and different levels of devotion. That basically people would decide yes or no based on that. So that's pretty interesting. Since you mentioned the engineering team, I like the fact that it's diverse team.
Yeah.
And I would like to ask a question. How does it feel for them and for you explaining, like, how do we? It's like basically that this product is for Muslims, built by non-Muslims, and here's how we manage that. Because in some sense, like if someone very super pro inclusion will see it offending, it's like, no, we should not build a product that like differentiate people and this kind of thing. But the fact that we choose who to know it's by design, it's as like we said that before. But how do you manage and navigate that?
I'd say, it's quite easy, and the heart of it is, if you look at what is the heart of the product, the heart of the app is bringing people together.
Yep.
And the way I say it is, the heart of the app is we bring people together who happen to be Muslim. That's the way I look at it. And from my perspective, that's a massive population that's been ignored and underserved for so long, right? Yeah. So that's my approach. And ultimately, for people who join Muzmatch, especially if they're non-Muslim, they can see the value in actually this brings good to society. You're bringing people together for something noble. It's long term, it's serious, it's not casual hookup, etc. You probably have more people who wouldn't want to work at some mainstream apps, especially because some of them do court the whole hookup type culture, right? And they're like, no, that's not for me. I actually interviewed someone today who literally said he was trying to understand how serious we were as a platform, and when I explained it, he was like, actually, I feel way more comfortable now, because he was working on a dating website, and he said two things. It was like they almost encourage the hookup type culture on it because it pays, right? It makes money. And secondly, I think from their side, obviously through all of that, they were encouraging effectively bot or fake accounts, which for him, he was like, doesn't think that's too ethical. And I would agree. I'm like, that's totally not. For me, that's just straight fraud, right? You shouldn't do that kind of stuff. So it's like, I would definitely say for us, because of, I guess, our noble aim of ultimately bringing people together in the name of marriage who happen to be Muslim. And that's the heart of it. If you look at the product, I always say there's way more in common with how Muslims or how people get together, and then obviously how Muslims get together. There's way more in common than there is different. We have our quirks, we have our preferences, but there's a lot of overlap in how that's done.
That's very good, and I think it aligns with your vision. It's like where are you going? It's there, and you are moving toward it, and there is nothing going to distract you. I applaud you for that.
Yeah. The heart of what we're trying to do is transform how Muslims meet and marry. That's like the heart of what we're trying to do. And through the app, I think. Well, I know. I don't think I know. We probably had the biggest impact than almost anything else out there. If you spoke to elders in the community, the common thing that they talk about is, it's difficult for young Muslims to get married and stay married. No doubt,
yes.
Tangibly on the ground, we've made the biggest difference to the first bit, and I'm sure we're going to talk about the second bit.
Yes. So it is pretty cool so far. So the question is, I'm Egyptian, so I'm like it's Middle East. Like, do you have customers from Middle East or this areas?
We have customers. We've had customers and weddings literally everywhere around the world. I mean, the app has been live in 14 languages, probably for the last 4 years. We did it quite early. Why? Because for me, I mean, the app's always been global. We never restricted it to only launch in the UK or only launch in the US. We made it global from day one because for me, because the app works based on location and showing people nearby, it's always relevant to you wherever you are. So we've got tens of thousands of people in Egypt on the app. We've had weddings in Egypt on the app. I remember a couple in Egypt who were featured by BBC Arabic for a feature about their journey, their story on Muzmatch and how they found each other, which is amazing, right? So for me, it always blows my mind seeing people get married in either remote parts of the world, or sometimes in places where I'm baffled of how on earth did they ever hear about us. It's crazy, but that's the beauty of what we do.
That's awesome. So I have another question related to the ethnicity. Do you have like cross racial marriages, or people prefer?
No. We do, and it actually surprised me to the degree that happens. And I do think this is a generation thing, right? If you look at 30 plus people, I think they're a lot more rigid on, there must be Egyptian, there must be Arab like me or whatever. Whereas the younger crowd, the 21-year-old or 21 to 25, they're very open. They're just like, are they a Muslim? Hopefully, are they a good Muslim? And that's all I care about. And it's actually more interesting, stroke exciting for them, for the other person to be of a different culture. One stat for you, I think it's about 55% of matches on Muzmatch are between people of different ethnicities, which basically, it surprised me at how high that number is, and it's growing. So that's amazing. That's number one. Number two is a very high proportion of Muslims on Muzmatch are actually happy to search in different countries for their partner. So they're looking outside of the US. They're looking in also, and they're not just looking back home. They're looking almost across the world. So the number of, we share a lot of success stories on our Instagram page. Just search Muzmatch, and you'll see so many interracial couples, interethnic couples, which is genuinely so nice to see. It really is. Yeah. And more so, I would say, probably on the younger side than on the older crowd. So there's definitely a generational change happening.
Yep. Yeah. I always had the perception of it's like because the community where I live, like the Muslim Community Association near me, usually you'll find a couple, but I think we are old. Like I'm married for like 15 years, so usually you see the couples always like Middle Eastern, marry Middle Eastern, even from the same country, Jordanian, Egyptians. Like we always tend to like attract to each other in a certain way. It's like maybe the culture, maybe I don't know. But I like the fact that there is interracial marriages. I think the new generation is more open. I guess it's like they just want to get married. They don't care about
Exactly, and not only that though. Remember, for the parents of these younger Muslims, their family networks aren't as strong.
Yeah.
their ability to find someone for their son or daughter, they struggle, right? I've had
Yeah.
parents call or email me saying, "Can you help me find someone for my son or daughter?" So
Mhm.
there's definitely some change in the makeup, the social makeup of Muslims in Muslim countries and even in non-Muslim countries, right? So
Mhm.
it does be, there's definitely challenges both by the individual as well as their families. So I think part of that will drive them saying, you know what, I'm not just going to restrict myself to Arab or whatever. I'm going to be open,
Yeah.
which is more
Given that,
Islamic, I would argue.
yeah, the actually when like me as a parent now, I have the same
Mm,
concern.
mm,
Um, it's like, as you know, like being Middle Eastern, being Muslim means that as a family, that's our unit. We
yeah.
don't think like individual. So so the concept also here is like, I'm worried about my kids, how they
Mm,
are going to find people that match their, it's
yeah.
like their mind. Given that it's like when you look at everything around you, it's like it's like we accept everything, we live in this
Mm,
society, but there is some certain fundamental differences that like I don't accept it, or I don't take
yeah.
it as it is. So I fully understand when like parent trying to reach out and tell you that they can't, like
Yeah.
there is some issues finding someone. So I have a very interesting question because it's like I have a daughter. I believe in the concept of chaperone. So so basically, but I think people here don't like it. Like most
Yeah.
modern, like they don't like the fact that there will be a male that
Mm,
keeping an eye on his daughter,
mm,
or it's like his wife.
yeah.
But it's part of like part of my faith. That's
Of
part of
course. Yeah.
what
Yeah.
I
Yeah. Yeah.
believe
Yeah.
in. So so did you face any kind of criticism toward that, or is
No,
it
I have.
usually people accept that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So from our side, we always saw it as like a competitive edge, right? We were the first app, full stop, to have a feature like that. Other people have
Yeah.
copied us since. I remember having the idea of thinking, hold up, this would be actually really straightforward to do, of including someone else in the chat. They get full visibility on the chat. Key and the most important thing in it is that if you do have a chaperone, it's visible to both parties. In that, to both people, guys, there's a chaperone in here, right? What does it
Yeah.
do? In a good way, it encourages good behavior. It's not like a behind the scenes thing. It makes sure that, for example, the guy that she's talking to knows there's a chaperone present as well. He'll make sure, all right, I'm going to behave. I'm not going to say something stupid, etc. Equally, for some people, if they're, let's say, either up to no good, or they're not on that wavelength, they'll just say, you know what, it's not for me, and that's kind of good as well, because it'll help the person find someone way more compatible with them.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I honestly like the idea because when I got married, before get married to my wife, we
Mm.
spent like 2 months. It's like 8, or you can consider it's like with the California lingo, it's
Yeah,
9 or 8 dates. Uh,
yeah.
there was a chaperone. It's like he was in the vicinity. He was not listening to what we were saying.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
We had some sort of like good time trying to understand each other before like committing to
Mm,
being engaged with the
yeah,
person. Then the concept of chaperone keeps going until we basically become
of course.
man and wife. So,
Yeah,
and that's where it's like, yes, you can sit together now.
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I believe it's good because as you said, it encourages good behavior. Any stupid, it's like thoughts or anything
Yeah.
rash
And
or anything. Yeah.
I agree with you. And this is why I think there's an education, and not just education. Like, we need to be a lot more open and friendly with young Muslims in how to navigate all this.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
almost leave them to their own devices because, oh, it's tricky, it's difficult. No one wants to talk about it, and they're kind of left to their own devices of trying to find someone, hopefully try and keep it halal and involve family.
yeah, yeah,
We play our role, but equally, we need parents and even siblings to be helpful to each other, right? Of
yeah.
saying, like, and it's one of those things, and I've heard it so many times. I'm sure you have too. The harder you make the halal, the easier the haram becomes, right? It's as
Oh,
simple as that.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
On a parent, no doubt, there's a way to still be a wali without, and a chaperone without being difficult in their face, making it horrible or awkward for them. Like, respecting their boundaries as well, right? And trusting the young person who's looking for someone, trusting them in what they're doing as well. So, for example, let's say if I'm meeting someone, no doubt, and I've met someone where they've had a brother present, and for me, it's all good. I don't have a problem with that at all. And like I said, that's a good filtering process in its
Yeah.
own right.
Yeah.
But equally, there's, let's say you're the brother in this situation, you could make things really difficult and, horrible for, your sister in this scenario, right? Or you could do it in a really nice way, like meet the guy, say hello, give them space, be around, but just give them space, right? So it's not horrible and awkward for everyone. Same with parents, sometimes they make it really awkward and difficult for no reason.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
there's ways of doing it. I think there's definitely a way for it to be done the right way, where you fulfill the criteria of being a chaperone, but also you give the people space. I think that's the important thing. I don't think we do that right, and I think that's possibly equally why this thought around a chaperone and the way it's done sometimes has a bad rep, because we don't apply it the right way.
Yeah. I have two questions.
Mm.
We said the word chaperone immediately without saying what it
Yeah.
is. It's like
Yes.
maybe the concept for the listeners is not like known.
Mm.
I like, could you introduce the idea of
Yeah, of
chaperone,
course. So,
like what it is?
what is a chaperone? And even on Muzmatch, we have the term chaperone or wali. So wali is the Arabic word for guardian, as such. Islamically speaking, for a woman is required to have a chaperone or a wali when even getting married, right? For the whole process of meeting someone and actually getting married, mainly as a protection measure, right? To make sure no one's taking advantage of her in any way, right? So it's there to ultimately protect the woman in this situation. It can be a father, brother, a male figure, generally speaking, a family connection, etc. On Muzmatch, what does that mean? So on Muzmatch, you can actually add a chaperone into your profile as such. What that means is anyone that you're talking to, anyone sending you messages, it's transparent to both parties, you and them, that there is a chaperone present, and that chaperone will then get a copy of all those messages to and from, so they can just make sure there's nothing untoward happening, etc., etc. And like I said, just that alone does instill good behavior, which is really good. We have members who've told us, particularly women, if you didn't have that feature, I just wouldn't join, full stop. So it's great for us to have a feature like that to make sure that, yes, people are protected, etc.
Yeah, I want to clarify one thing. If someone non-Muslim listening, basically the chaperone is like if a Muslim woman believes in Islam and this specific, like it's also faith is like a huge range. So if someone believes in that, of course they would love to have such a feature in a product that serves them, and I think it's not mandatory in the product.
Yeah.
It's like it exists. If someone would like to take advantage of that, it's available. So it's not enforced. That's what I mean. If someone it's also so because I hate to give out a wrong image about like Muslim women. Muslim women are independent and strong, but in the belief, basically, this is something preferred to happen, and like I will not talk more about that because I feel kind of embarrassed explaining things, but in short, it's not indicative of like women is not unable to take care of themselves. They can take care of themselves. It's just something that in my faith, that's where it's better to do that. So do you have a guide for what makes a good chaperone, or like
I think we actually do some blog articles around all this kind of thing, and one for example was of a chaperone is being interested enough, right? You're not there to just tick a box and say I was a chaperone. It's being interested enough and finding out about the guy. I'm presuming in this situation it's the guy. Finding out about his family, right? Almost doing your homework. Remember, if you're meeting someone off the internet as such, right? And especially if you're thinking about marrying them, you want to do as much homework as possible. You want to find out about him, his family, his work, reputation. Maybe he's been married before. Is there anything you can and should find out about that? There's so many things to find out about. Particularly on the, like I said, this is a stranger. Sometimes I always say, the best way to meet someone is through friends and family or a friends network, etc. Because there's always someone who can vouch for them, and that is quite powerful, right? I don't deny that. This is one thing, apps, etc. It's very hard to solve for that, because the gist of an app is we'll connect you to people outside of your conventional circles. In terms of, like I said, a chaperone, it's someone who helps you on that whole process. Equally, helps make sure you stay grounded, right? Tries to make you ask the right questions, the serious questions, the questions that matter, and try to help you not overly get emotions caught up in the mix, right? You know, when you're meeting someone, sometimes you can let emotions run away, that you start ignoring, you know, red flags right in front of you, or you actually don't ask the questions that are really important to you. So hopefully a chaperone is someone who just keeps you level-headed. They can make unemotional comments or advice that hopefully help you think about things the right way. Just keep you grounded in the search.
Yeah, I like what you are describing here. It's like more of second opinion who is not
Mm.
emotionally invested in the
Of
whole
course.
thing and can
Yeah.
give you an honest opinion, like on the interaction, on the person, on the whole thing.
Mm.
I think like we had talked enough about the chaperone.
Mm.
I have like assuming that it went very good and we have a marriage.
Mm.
Like, what is the measurement for the quality of the marriages? It's like, do you have something like that, or it's just married?
Yeah, I would love to say we do. I mean, no doubt. I mean, one I wouldn't say, well, it is a challenge to some degree, is getting people to just share with us that they got married, right? We have people who tell us, I found a partner, etc. But then often people who get married, they don't want to make it public, you know? And I do think that's changing, but it's going to take time. You know, there is still this taboo people have around, oh, I met her online or him online, etc. We shouldn't be there, you know, it really shouldn't. For Muslims, I almost think meeting someone online is probably one of the more halal ways you could meet, you know, someone of the opposite gender, right? Especially on an app where it's centered around marriage. So I do think we need to remove or yeah, this hang up or this taboo around finding someone online. In terms of success of marriages, you know, thankfully I've probably only heard of one or two, you know, of all the success couples we've had, I've only heard of one or two instances or a handful of instances of people who are not together anymore or are divorced or it didn't work out. So thankfully, you know, I think there's, you know, a decent success rate. I don't have numbers for it. One thing I would say though is, you know, and you know, this is from someone who's been in that process of, you know, the matchmakers, you know, I'm Asian and Pakistani, the Asian matchmakers who, you know, try and match you up. You know, their criteria for matching is very crude. You know, it's almost that you're both human and that's about it. You know,
Yeah.
or you know, oh, you're, you know, for example, you're in banking. Oh, she's also in banking, or she's an accountant. You know, and that's the matching process. And you know, and you know, everyone knows when you're considering someone for marriage. You know, you're talking about personality, looks, faith, profession, education. All these things are important in terms of a match actually working out. And you know, one thing that Muzmatch allows you to do, and hopefully helps you do, is actually assess compatibility along personality. You know, along all those other metrics that often on the conventional way you don't get time to do or freedom to do. And you know, you would argue, you know, the success of a marriage, you know, if you, at the heart of, you know, if you look at most marriages and why they fail, there's usually two reasons. Number one is I would argue probably one of the biggest one is around finances. You know, both in terms of expectations of finances or the actual financial situation of the couple. Second one is around personalities, and this can be, you know, OCD type behavior or aggressive behavior or yeah, even emotional behavior, right? How people are. That level of compatibility can either cement or break a marriage. So you know, those two in the conventional old school matchmaking methods that, you know, a lot of Muslims often use are probably the two that aren't given high enough consideration. Whereas on an app like ours, on Muzmatch, it's two things that you can actually find out and figure out quite quickly.
Okay, that's very good. Um, so, do you plan to have some sort of couple counseling, or this is also not in the map?
Yeah. So no, so two things. We've always done. So we have a Muzmatch blog, and we actually share tons of articles with our members on the whole thing, on finding someone, what you should ask, how do you spot red flags, how do you navigate online, how do you figure out what's important to you, all these kind of things. And we even have post-marriage advice as well, written by actual Muzmatch success couples. So couples who've met on Muzmatch and are married now have written, you know, advice on how they found each other, the things that they learn, and equally the things they learn in marriage. You know, so we have all of that. One thing that we're keen to do though is something a lot more structured to actually help people in terms of pre and post marriage, of navigating all of that. So it's something that, you know, we have a very endless list of things to do, but that's definitely something that is a big focus for us around education. And it's only important because there's a gap of education for young Muslims done in a way that's relatable to them. You know, you could obviously throw an Islamic lecture at them or quite serious Islamic lecture, etc. The thing is, you need to make it and package it in a way that appeals to them and that they would actually consume in a good way and learn from.
That's really good. Um, I now we talked a lot about Muzmatch. I want to talk more about the couple of things. One of the
Mm,
like I love the most is the startup kind of life.
mm.
So you mentioned how did you start, but I would like to zoom in on it. What is the trigger? It's like there is always the inflection point. What was it? It's like when you decide, it's like, yeah, this is worthy of doing. I should build something to solve this problem. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean,
please go ahead.
I would actually say, when I first launched it, it was. I remember what was out there was so terrible. There were horrible websites that were expensive, that were just horrible to use. No one had a good thing to say about them. And at the same time, if you spoke to Muslims, I'm a Muslim, obviously I get the culture. Everyone talks about marriage and everyone talks about how hard it is to get married, right? So you've got all of that, which is difficult, right? So I thought there's clearly a need for something like this. This is important. Now, so that was kind of the first driver. So I set up Muzmatch just because as a website back in 2011 because I thought I can make a contribution here, and I was convinced I could do something better than other people had done it. So I did that whilst my normal job. Marketed it. Actually, did some events and grew it. It wasn't massive, but it was a decent size. But then when it got to about 2013, 2014, was when I first saw apps, and I thought, oh my god, this isn't a website. This should be an app. It just seems so obvious that if you're getting to know someone, talking to someone, it should be an app. And I remember looking at the traffic on my website and realizing that I think it was more than 50% of it, or it might have been 80, was coming from phone traffic. So for me, that was the most obvious indicator that this has to be an app. So come 2014, it's one of those things. The idea was in my head, and I thought if I don't do it, someone else is going to do this, and I'll kick myself. So 2014, I quit my job. I then learned how to build apps, and then built it and launched it in about 6 months on Android and iOS. And thankfully, I've never looked back. It's just grown and grown purely because there was clearly a gap in the market. Our product was better than everything else that was out there, and we were solving it in a way that resonated with people.
Um, like when was the first round of fund, and how did you convince the investors, especially that this is like from my perspective, I see it as touchy. Like
Mm,
California here is a little bit uh, like there is an episode about religion and Silicon Valley in the Silicon Valley show. So it's not
mm,
like it feels like stereotyping, but people here are more leaning toward freedom. So
mm,
so basically, it kind of tend to be unsafe territory for I would say investor to
mm.
put in money in a cause like yours. So like how did you raise money, and how did it flow with you?
I would say two things. So for me, most of our investors, actually most, if not all of our investors, are non-Muslim. So the question is, all right, how did non-Muslims get invested in this? How did they get interested in this as a thing? The crazy thing is, I actually pitched to Muslim investors, but they weren't interested. Most of them wasted my time, in all honesty. Um, uh, and this was the market who I thought would actually get it more. So be it. We're based in the UK, so I actually went out to the States and then raised. I did. Thankfully, we got into Y Combinator, which was a big deal. We were the first Muslim-centric startup ever to be backed by Y Combinator, which is major. So that was definitely, for us, especially as a British company, was like getting Harvard on your CV. It's a good stamp of approval. And even then, we got rejected the first time by Y Combinator because we didn't have any revenue. And then they said, come back with revenue. That's exactly what we did. And then it was a lot more straightforward the second time. We got called out. We still got grilled at interview, but thankfully we got in, and have grown since then. And then so we did a seed round of $1.75 million in 2017, and then we did a Series A of $7 million in 2019. So that's our current picture as such in terms of how we raised money. In terms of, I guess, why investors were interested. I mean, number one, size of the market. Muslim market's huge. Number two was, if you look at what was out there, we were far, even at that time, we were far and ahead away of everyone else. And we had really strong data, good traction, clearly, solving a problem for people and a lot of people. So the data almost told a really strong story, which made the whole conversation easier. For them also, my ability to explain this to a non-Muslim in a way, with humor and with simplicity, I think really worked. And they could see that actually this guy is passionate about it, and hopefully will do a good job. And I like to think I have.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, could you say it was pretty straightforward? Like it was not as complex
I,
as anyone might think.
I would say, you know what? Generally speaking, in the scheme of things, I would say we've been very lucky in terms of how we raise money. So, the obviously getting this Y Combinator helped in the seed level, and our seed round I would say was moderately easy, moderately straightforward. Not totally, but moderately. We actually raised. I remember we raised half really easily, and then the other half was slightly more difficult and took a bit longer. But equally, I was trying to be a little bit fussy over who we go with in terms of our seed round. In the Series A, we were very lucky in that it felt like the right time to do it. I had an investor who was really interested in the product and me, and actually been kind of almost following us for a year. And he was an investor in us at the time, and it just kind of worked out. I emailed him saying, you know what? Well, he actually emailed me saying, "Oh, by the way, Shaz, I'm in London this week," and I was like, "Perfect! I've got something I want to talk to you about." So we spoke about Muzmatch, about if we did a round, what should it look like, all that kind of stuff, and within a couple of days, I gave him some data and he was happy and he said, let's do this. And, thankfully we did a Series A without doing a pitch deck. We just shared data, he
Wow.
got the vision, etc., which is amazing, right? Like we're
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
lucky on that perspective. So, in our Series A, it was just them plus Y Combinator, which really helped. So definitely that was a lot easier. What made it actually tricky was we were doing the round and obviously completing paperwork, and then Ramadan hits, right? And for us, Ramadan's a quiet period. So all of our metrics start dipping. You get a little bit of panic
Yeah,
of what the hell is this? And I'm like, it's Ramadan, it's normal. We have it every year, like relax. But,
yeah,
clearly for a non-Muslim investor, they want to see that come back. And thankfully, we came back with a bang after Ramadan. We actually had a record month straight after Ramadan, which is great. So we bounced back nicely.
yeah, yeah. That's good. So that's pretty interesting. For you personally, how was the experience of raising money?
Mm.
Like because people always like it's a superhero job to raise the money, and it's always depicted as like someone taking off a skin and become something else to
Yeah, yeah,
raise
yeah.
the money. So
Uh,
how was it?
You know what? I have to admit, I mean, no doubt it's like I said, if I had to compare to most people, we were lucky. I think,
Yeah.
thankfully, because we have strong data, strong metrics, relatively, it was easier to raise money.
Okay.
I think that's for
Okay.
sure. So that's number one. I think number two, not in a big-headed way, but generally, I think I'm a fairly good salesperson. I can
Okay.
talk a good game in terms of like what's our mission, what we're trying to do. I am a very capable founder. I effectively built the first product entirely. Native Android, native iOS, the backend, the graphics, the customer support, the user acquisition. It was, mostly all me
Yeah.
initially. So, which is hopefully gives credibility to an investor as well. So I think that, and combined with the story and the mission, it's quite strong. I
Yeah.
think even more so now. You would say in inverted commas, thanks to COVID, it's definitely grown the dating market in total.
Yeah.
The whole scope of finding a partner online, has accelerated. No doubt, even in the Muslim world, has accelerated because of COVID. So, there's definitely some tailwinds that are helping our business. Even for us, I'd argue in time the taboo around this in the Muslim world will decrease. I think in time, smartphone penetration, the ability to make payments, the internet quality and speed in Muslim countries is only going to get better. So there's quite a few tailwinds for this kind of business, which is great.
Yeah. Cool. So I have a question about the internally. How do you manage? Like you have a diverse team. We already went through that like at the beginning, but I would like
Mm.
to zoom in on the product development. It's
Mm.
like, does your team understand what does it mean? Because you serve exclusive kind of users.
Yeah, yeah.
So they need to study. It's like they either need to study or be well versed on what does Muslim needs, what is the rules, what is the
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think the best answer to that is that we're very fortunate that our customers are very vocal. So our
okay.
customers give us so much feedback about everything, literally everything.
Yeah.
They'll tell us if we're doing something stupid. They'll tell us if they don't like this, or if this thing should work like that, or if this feature we need, or this thing is broken, or whatever. They tell us in volume and quickly. So we have so much feedback from them, which is amazing. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, within the team, particularly on the marketing side, and obviously me as CEO, there's plenty of, I would say, Muslim direction to make sure we're making mostly the right calls in product and the way we've worded things, the way we design things, etc. Um, but at the same time, remember, we cater to the Muslim market, but equally we want to be very middle ground in everything we do. So we
Yeah.
don't want to be for the super religious only, or we don't want to be for the a-religious Muslims. We want to be right in the middle for those people in the middle. And I think we do a good job, given that, you know, on Muzmatch you have, you know, women wearing the full niqab versus women who don't. You know, you have men who would, let's say, drink and would say, I'm not that practicing. However, it's important for them to marry a Muslim. You know, they identify as Muslim, and that's still important to them. And for me, if you identify as a Muslim and you want to get married to a Muslim, amazing. This is the app for you. You know, we shouldn't be putting you off.
Yeah. That's very good. I think I have, like, I ran out of questions. You have been taking it very smooth. So yeah, I really like what you're doing. Like, seriously, I was thinking I should visit London to visit your office. It's like that.
Thank you. Always welcome. Yeah. It's a small office now because of COVID. We downsized, but we've made it like really nice. It works.
Yeah. So if you have anything to say at the end, like, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I mean, literally, I would just say two things. You know, if you're looking to find a partner, no doubt, you know, check it out. You know, it takes a lot of effort to find a partner. You know, you're looking for the one, right? Your partner for life. So it takes effort. You know, you'll meet people where it works. You'll meet people that it doesn't work, and that's all part of the experience, but your own growth as an individual. So don't be afraid of it. You know, we're here to support you. Definitely try out the app. You know, we've always, one thing we've always kept from the beginning, it's always free to use the app, to find someone, to chat to them, to get married. You know, you should never be forced to pay for anything to do that. So we've always maintained that. We always will. That's important. So give it a go. You've literally got nothing to lose. Just search for Muzmatch on the app stores, download it for free, and check it out.
Yep, that's cool. Thank you so much for accepting my invitation, and I wish
welcome.
you have a successful journey with Muzmatch.
Inshallah. Thank you so much, and thank you to all the listeners as well, and to you for inviting me on here.
Yeah, thank you. Enjoy your day.
Take care.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.